Hello, everyone. In this session, we are excited to share with you what's new in security and management in SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams. I'm Sesha Mani. I'm the Principal Group Product Manager at Microsoft. Joining me is Yogesh Ratnaparki, Principal Product Manager at Microsoft. We have four chapters we'll cover in this session, starting with trends in security and management. What are the new security and compliance controls, new advanced management controls, and we'll finish with a summary and a roadmap. Let's start with the trends in security and management. In the context of security, the trend we are seeing is the zero trust model. Gone are the days when employees are expected to use VPN to access their corporate data. Nowadays, employees expect to be able to access the corporate data from anywhere using any devices at any time. That brings up a challenge for the security administrators like you and me. This is where zero trust model comes into play. We cannot really trust all the segments or throughout the network connection that the end user has with the corporate data. There are three key principles in the zero trust model. First, verify explicitly who the user is, the resource that they're trying to access to, and ensure that if there are additional stronger authentication required, that happens as well, depending on the sensitivity of the content that they are accessing. Second, least user privileges. Always ensure that only the privileges that are absolutely needed is given to the users and nothing beyond that. And finally, assume breach. Doesn't matter what level of security policies and management controls we have put in place, breach is going to happen. So be ready and ready to have a response plan when the breach happens. In the lens of digital data, as the digital transformation is happening across all the organizations, across all the verticals, we see an ever-increasing digital estate. With that comes the challenge of how do you manage that ever-increasing digital estate? Also, hybrid workspace is the new norm now. You have employees working in the office as well as from home or remotely from some other location. Collaboration needs to happen across these employees while there is no compromise to the security, as well as in a compliant way as well, the collaboration happens. With that trends backdrop, let me now share with you the key pillars that we look at as we think about security and management for the digital era. There are four key pillars. The first pillar is users and collaboration, be it internal users or external users, how they are going to collaborate in a secure fashion, while at the same time there is flexibility for those users. The second pillar is devices and apps access. Gone are the days when you can require users to use managed devices. Nowadays, users expect to be able to access the corporate data from any devices, their personal devices, from their perhaps other friends' devices, and so on. Same thing, they want to be able to access from any applications as well. So the access control policies become a real important play here. The third pillar is the content and organization lifecycle. And this is an area we started to invest heavily on because as the sites get created, there is always the life associated with it. Either it gets deleted after many years, or it gets archived or backed up, or it kept for another 5 more years. But the notion of life cycle of the content is really matters as well. Last but not least, at the core of all these things is the data itself. How do you manage and protect your corporate data? With these pillars in mind, now let's dive in what's new in security and compliance controls. The first control I want to share with you is user-defined permissions for Office files in SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams. As you know, we have been in this sensitivity labels journey for the past 3+ years. We have introduced labels for SharePoint sites, Teams, and Microsoft 365 groups. We also have enabled labels for files as well. We enabled admin-defined permissions so that admin can decide what permissions are associated with a given label. We are thrilled to share with you that we are also looking at providing support for user-defined permissions for the Office files in SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams. This means user can now specifically say the list of users and the security groups that are allowed access for a given file. that UDP protected file, when it is getting shared, uploaded into SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams, it will get the first class experience, meaning users now can open the document, co-author with the rest of the colleagues as well. At the same time, the governance policies like e-discovery and DLP can now be performed against these UDP protected files as well. This is a huge step forward in our labels journey. And this capability is going to start private preview in early calendar 23. Let's take a quick look at this particular capability in action. Here, I have a PowerPoint deck talking about growth in Contoso sales. I'm going to go ahead and apply a sensitivity label that is enabled for user-defined protection here. And I'm going to add two users for this particular PowerPoint deck, Venia and Sanjoyan. And as you can see now, the file is protected with user-defined permissions. Now, let me go ahead and upload this particular file to a SharePoint Sites document library. Typically, when you upload a UDP protected file, we call it as bricked file. You cannot action on them. However, in this case, as you can see, the sensitivity column gets populated with the corresponding label. This shows you that the service is able to realize this protected file and retrieve the label and populate that property. Also, you can open this file and do co-authoring as well with two or more of your colleagues. Also, the governance policies like DLP and e-discovery can now be applied on this UDP protected PowerPoint file as well. Well, we're not stopping here. The next big capability I want to share with you is protected PDF support in SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams. As you know, Office files had this full support in SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams. Now we are bringing that forward for protected PDFs as well. Users can now open the labeled and protected PDFs in SharePoint with the first class experience. Also, the governance policies like data loss prevention and e-discovery can be applied to the contents in these protected PDFs as well. And of course, users can search for these PDFs too. Stay tuned for more updates later this calendar year on when this feature will be hitting the service. Next up is default label for SharePoint document libraries. We have announced labels for SharePoint sites, for files, labels for Teams, and Microsoft 365 groups. Well, now we are bringing it to the next level, document libraries as well. Now, you may wonder, why do we need this capability? Well, imagine your users are uploading new files or creating new files in a document library, and you want them to get protected from the get-go. That's exactly what this capability allows you to do. As soon as your new file gets created or a file is touched in a given document library, the default label of the library is automatically applied to that file. That means the file is now protected from the get-go. This capability is in public preview now, and it will come to general availability by end of this calendar year. Let's take a quick look at this capability in action. Here, I have a SharePoint site Strategic Planning 2023. I'm going to create a document library. And as you can see, I now have the option to select from a list of sensitivity labels. These are labels published for my enterprise. I selected confidential. Now the label is set for that document library. Let me go ahead and upload some documents to this particular document library. And the moment the document is uploaded into the document library, as you can see, the sensitivity column gets populated. This means the file is now labeled as confidential as well. And I can open the file and see that the sensitivity label is applied. And not only that, the lock icon shows me that the file is protected with the RMS encryption protection that is associated with the confidential label as well. The next capability that I wanted to share with you is continuous access evaluation for SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams. We are taking the access control evaluation to the whole new level. Instead of just at the sign-in time or the first time accessing the resource, we do the access evaluation. We change it to continuously monitor the conditions in which the users are accessing the corporate resources and apply the access control policies appropriately. For example, user signals like user account is disabled or user has changed the password. In those conditions, we will be able to detect them right away and then in real time revoke access to the user and perhaps reprompt them to sign in again. Also, conditional accesses like IP address policy or device health state policy are also monitored continuously and can be used to trigger a revoke access on a given user's session as well. CAE for SharePoint and Teams and OneDrive with user signals is now generally available. Now, let's take a look at this capability in action. Here, I have a user, Neil, who is within corporate network able to open an Excel spreadsheet from Teams experience as well as he can access it from SharePoint as well. However, Neil is now traveling back to his home or perhaps a coffee shop. That means he's going outside of the corporate network, now trying to access the same Excel file. As you can see, he does not have access to this file. No matter how he's trying to access it, either from a Teams experience or directly from a SharePoint site itself, he is denied access because the IP address policy gets triggered and hence he is revoked access to this content from this particular location. But wait, there's more that we wanted to share with you. Information barriers enhancements. As you know, a few years ago, we introduced this information barriers compliance capability in the service, specifically for SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams. It helps financial organizations to meet their FINRA compliance and also for highly regulated companies as well. You can segment the users in your enterprises per compliance requirement. Up to 5,000 segments you can create in your tenancy. And you can associate now a given user to multiple segments, much like you can associate a resource to multiple information segments as well. Another new capability is we're introducing a concept of IB modes. This allows you to be able to set a given mode for the IB protected resource. For example, one of my favorite mode is the owner moderated mode. This way, you can create owner moderated sites and teams. Make sure the information barrier policy is fully enforced in those sites. However, give the privilege to the owner of the site and the team to bring in additional users so that the right level of collaboration can happen within that site or team and users can achieve more. IB 2.0 with these enhancements will be generally available at the end of this calendar year. So that was a whirlwind tour of the new security and compliance controls that we are bringing to you. Let me recap it. First, user-defined permission support for Office files. Second, protected PDF support in SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams. Third, the default label for SharePoint document libraries so that new files can be automatically labeled in a given document library. Fourth, it's a continuous access evaluation wherein we are taking the access conditions to the whole new level. And finally, enhancements in the information barriers capability, such as information barrier modes and the multi-segments for a given user as well. Now, let's dive into some of the improvements we are making in the migration space. For that, let me turn it over to my colleague Yogesh to walk us through the improvements in migration space. Yogesh, over to you.
Thanks, Sesha. Choosing Microsoft 365 is easy. The next thing on your mind is how to get your content into Microsoft 365. And for that, we offer you a comprehensive set of self-serve tools and services to easily move your content into Microsoft 365. Migration Manager is our recommended tool to get your content from network file shares and cloud storage providers, while SPMT lets you get your content from SharePoint Server 2010, 13, and 16. We understand that migration can be overwhelming, so FastTrack offers a free service to migrate on your behalf. And then we have a rich ecosystem of third-party ISVs and system integrator to complement what we offer through our first-party tools. Let me walk you through a quick demo of some of the enhancements coming in Migration Manager. As you know, Migration Manager is hosted within the SharePoint Admin Center, and from the landing page, you can choose the source you want to migrate from, whether it's FileShare, Box, Google Workspace, Dropbox, or Ignite. You can also download SPMT to get your content from SharePoint Server 2010, 13, and 16. Today, I'll walk you through the Google Workspace scenario to introduce the new enhancements coming to Migration Manager. You will notice I have already connected to the Google source, and here you can get a scan of your environment, including the total size, if you have any errors and warnings in your migration, and a breakup by the source paths and the data. However, sometimes you often want to get a detailed analysis, and for that, we offer you reports. Very soon, you will be able to download detailed reports in bulk so that you don't have to go through each task one by one. And once you click on the detailed report for your selected tasks, you will get a toast notification. And then from the Action Center, you can check the progress. You can also download previously requested report from the links below. That way, you can request a long running report a night before, and the next day is ready for you to go. You also know the expiration date so that you can download these reports in time. So, that was the first enhancements coming to Migration Manager. Now that you have prepared your scans, you're ready to stage your migrations. So, you often copy the scans, and once you copy them to the Migrations tab, you will now have the ability to filter out the content you want to migrate. You could customize these filters by choosing what you want to apply for each of the setting. For example, you want to eliminate a few files with invalid characters, or you can exclude folders that you don't want to migrate for your batch. For example, archive folders or folders with personal in them. Those folders can be excluded when you start your migrations. And now once you copy to migrations, the batch will execute according to the filters you just set here. So that was the second enhancement coming to Migration Manager. The last but not the least, you will soon have the ability to get an estimate on the total migration. The estimate is based on the number of files you scan, the size of the files, and it assumes a simultaneous execution of your migration batch. You can also drill down on a task level estimation so you can further plan your migration. So those are some of the enhancements coming to Migration Manager which we're really excited about. You will notice that Migration Manager is now in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. This will help you centrally manage your migrations across multiple workloads, including email and files. Migration Manager will continue to be in the SharePoint Admin Center and will let you access with the SharePoint Admin credential, but this is just another way for you to access this tool more centrally. So that was Migration Manager. On the SPMT side, we are introducing an ability to scan your on-prem server. That way you can jumpstart your migrations through a simple click. Here, you will get a quick inventory overview, including the errors and warnings, so you can plan your migrations better. Also, to further simplify your migrations, you can get a scenario overview of your migrations so that you can manage your project better. So, those are some of the enhancements coming to Migration Manager and SPMT. Thank you so much. Back to you, Sesha.
Now, let's dive into what are the new advanced management controls that are coming up in the service. The first management control that I want to share with you is about controlling oversharing. Oversharing is a common problem. Users unintentionally or intentionally share their sites and files with broad audience of users. That results in corporate data landing in unauthorized users' hands. Look no further. The restricted access control policy can now allow you to control the oversharing. You can set this policy so that imagine a Microsoft 365 group connected site, which means the group itself has a membership and you want only those members to have access to the corresponding SharePoint site. You can now enable this restricted access control on the site, which will ensure even if there are files and folders that are shared with people outside of that membership by breaking inheritance, for example, then those users will no longer have access to those resources because you strictly want only the Microsoft 365 group members to have access to the corresponding site resources. We are starting with Microsoft 365 Group Connected Site. We do plan to bring this to other SharePoint site templates as well by using the security groups in Azure Active Directory. Let's take a quick look at this capability in action. Here I am in the SharePoint Admin Center looking at the properties of the Project Apollo site. As you can see, Microsoft 365 Group membership includes users like Seisha and Megan Smith. However, there are also other site members like Daniel, Dakota that are part of that corresponding SharePoint site, even though they are not inside the Microsoft 365 Group membership. Now that's clearly overshared site. So I would like to go and control this oversharing. So I open up the SharePoint PowerShell and then set the property restricted access control to true to ensure only the membership users are allowed access in the corresponding SharePoint site. Now, as you can see, Daniel was previously able to access the site, but now when she tried to refresh or try to access resource in the site, she get access denied. With just one PowerShell commandlet, you can now control the oversharing in the SharePoint sites. We are not stopping there. We'll also help you to control OneDrive oversharing as well. Specifically, we bring in limiting OneDrive access at the tenant level. So for example, you may have regulatory requirements or business needs to ensure external users or joint venture users or partner users don't have access to your internal employees' OneDrive files, even if they have accidentally got shared with. This capability, restricted access control for OneDrives, helps you to achieve that use case. This capability is generally available now. Now, let's take a quick look at it in action. Here in the SharePoint Admin Center, I'm going to control the OneDrive access by allowing only the full-time employee-only security group. And when I add the member groups, as you can see, for the full-time employees, only the internal employees are part of the group. Here I am logged in as the Daniel, who's an external vendor. And when she tries to go and access the OneDrive, voila, she's getting access denied. This is because she's not part of the internal employee group. It's an external vendor. Hence, she cannot get a OneDrive, as well as she cannot access any OneDrive files that is shared with her. Next up is the granular conditional access policy for SharePoint and Teams. As you know, we have introduced conditional access policy in the service a few years ago. However, that was at the fine-grained level. Now we are bringing it to the granular level at the given SharePoint site and team. So for example, you may have a strategy site, or you may have the 2025 planning site or team where you would like to ensure that is constrained only to a certain set of users. And more importantly, whoever is accessing it have to go through perhaps additional layer of authentication. Now you can achieve those capabilities with granular conditional access policy. And let's take a quick look at this capability in action. Here I am as the administrator setting the conditional access policy for the site legal department and requiring the multi-factor authentication as part of that conditional access policy as well. And now, when the user goes and accesses the SharePoint home or in the Teams experience for that particular files experience, the legal department site, as you can see, now additional authentication is required. I got a text message, so let me go ahead and enter that text message. And I click verify, and now I have access to the resources in this legal department team. That's how easy it is for the end user on demand provide the additional credential to get access to them. While they work on other SharePoint sites or teams, there is no need for additional credentials there. Not only multi-factor authentication, you can think of any other conditions that you want to put in place to access these very sensitive strategic sites and teams in your organization. How cool is that? The next management capability I want to share with you is data access governance insights. Teams and SharePoint sites sprawl in an organization is an inevitable problem. As your users go and create more and more teams, behind the scenes SharePoint sites also gets created, and now you see potentially millions of sites, perhaps sites and teams in your organization. The question is, how do you know what are the top 100 sites that really matters, and then ensure that you have the right policies put in place? Well, now with the power of data access governance insights, you will be able to discover what are those top 100 sites. We look at two main criteria and show you the top 100 sites. Number one is the sharing activities that happens in the site. If they are overshared with anyone links or people within your organization, which is otherwise called company shareable link, then you can see them in this top 100 sites. Second, if the site has the highest number of labeled files, then it will pop up in the top 100 sites as well. Okay, now I have the top 100 sites. What do you do then? Well, ensure that the right set of policies are put in place, such as device policy, perhaps sensitivity label, and external sharing policy. In top of that, if you want the site owners to do some actions, now you can invoke site access review as well. This is the new capability that we are bringing in as part of the DAG Insights feature. I'm proud to announce DAG version 1 is now generally available. Let's take a quick look at this capability in action. Here I am in the Data Access Governance Insights dashboard. I see there are two main reports, Sharing Links report and Sensitivity Labels report. I'm going to go click on Sharing Links reports. And I see there are three options: anyone links, people in my organization links, and specific people. People in my organization links, otherwise called company shareable links, is the one I'm interested in. I'm going to go ahead and run the report for it. Now the report has run. Let's take a look at what are the top 100 sites. And I see that Project Apollo showed up as one of the top 100 sites because it has the highest number of sharing activity. Also, it has the highest number of e-signed documents as well. I wanted to let the site owner to do a site access review on this. So I can now select the site owner, put a custom message to check out the sharing links that are there, and then perhaps attest it back that these links are still valid. Here is an email notification the site owner Nestor gets, and Nestor can simply click on that link to review the site access that's happening here. And it shows you the very nice view of all the files that are having company shareable link, and more importantly, who have already used that company shareable link to gain access to these documents. Nestor can now choose to revoke access to some of these files and then click on Mark as Reviewed, which will get notified back to the SharePoint administrator. So not only we start with showing you the top 100 sites, but we also help you to finish the end-to-end, being able to work with the site owners, get them to review the access of their sites, and then act back or consent back to you, confirm the end-to-end flow is completed. How cool is that? The next capability I want to touch on is the site's lifecycle policies, specifically inactive sites. As I mentioned earlier, teams and site sprawl is going to be an inevitable problem. There are going to be inactive sites or orphan sites and teams that are left behind in your organization. So you may wonder, how would I go about and learn about it and discover them? Well, with the inactive sites policy now, you can discover and also either retire or take actions on these inactive sites per your criteria. The site owners of these inactive sites will get notifications based on this policy configuration, and then they can choose to either keep the site or backup, archive, or delete the site as well. The preview of this capability is starting end of this calendar year, and stay tuned for updates on this capability. Let's take a quick look at this capability in action. So here I am in the Site Lifecycle Policies tab, and I can select creating a policy, and now I see the site inactive site management policy. I can select the number of months that the site needs to be inactive to be considered for inactive site. And then I can select the site template, be it team site or a classic site. So here I'm choosing the team site. And then the source of the site, whether it was created from Exchange, OneDrive, or SharePoint Experience, I can select that here. Not only that, I can select even sensitivity label and filter only for a specific sensitivity label, let's say public, and also information segments of the site as well. And then most of the organizations have a list of sites that they closely manage and so on. So you may want to have exclude those sites from this policy evaluation. So you can do that as well. Now I click next. Let me give it a name for this policy, as well as a description for the policy. And not only that, I don't need to turn on this policy right away. In fact, I wanted to run this policy in a simulation trial mode, ensure that the policy, I have configured them properly, fine-tune it, and then I wanted to turn on the policy. So now I'm running the policy in the trial simulation mode. And once the trial simulation mode has completed, I can now see that there are 600 sites that are marked as inactive per my criteria. I can click on the download trial report and I see all the sites that are there, and those are all seems to reasonable to me. Now let me go ahead and turn on the policy. And then moment I turn it on, the site owners of the inactive sites are going to get the notification like this. Now the site owner can choose to either keep the site or backup, archive, or delete the site. Now in this case, I'm going to click keep the site, and that basically completes the cycle. How cool is that? The end-to-end, deducting the inactive sites all the way to site owners taking actions on them and then giving that notification back to the administrator as well. That's how powerful this inactive site policy is. The next management capability I want to share with you is recent admin actions by SharePoint admins and site owners. The typical day-to-day of a SharePoint admin is perhaps getting the support ticket from an end user, something like, I don't have access to my site anymore. I cannot see my sites anymore. It's a very typical concerns that you probably hear from users, something similar to this. Wouldn't it be helpful if you have a way to see all the actions that are taken place by the administrator on the given site or site owner activities that happen on the site? Well, that's exactly what this capability is about. We will provide you all the recent actions that are taken by a given SharePoint administrator. And also, you can see for a given site all the history of activities that happened for the site. We'll share you all the metadata about the site, such as updates to the site name, URL, sensitivity label, coda, membership. All the updates will be captured in this activity report as well. Let's see this capability in action here. Here, I'm in the Active Sites tab, and I can click on your recent actions, and that shows me all the full list of actions that I've taken in this particular session. And I can drill deep into the site details as well. And not only that, as I mentioned, if I get a support ticket from one of the users that the Contoso team is no longer accessible for them, then I can go to the site history experience and create a new report. For example, a report that is running from June 1st to the September 16th, and give it a name, and the site name here is Contoso team. Now it will scan all the activities of that site. I can download all the activities. Voila, I can see that now the site actually got deleted. So that explains. I can go to the deleted sites tab and search for the Contoso team site and simply restore the site. And the problem is solved just like that. Capabilities like this are really there to help you to mitigate the support incidents that you might get from the end users within a matter of minutes, instead of where it might take days for you to investigate today. So that was a whirlwind tour of all the new capabilities we are bringing as part of advanced management controls. Let me recap it for you. We started with restricted access control policy for SharePoint sites, where it allows you to control oversharing for SharePoint sites. Second, we mentioned the same restricted access control policy can be done for OneDrives at the tenant level as well. And then we touched on granular conditional access policy for SharePoint, Teams, and OneDrive. And then having a data access governance insights that shows you the top 100 sites that matters the most in your organization. Then we got into the site lifecycle policies, specifically talking about inactive site policy. And then we finished with recent actions that are done by the SharePoint admins and the site owners, how the site history can help to mitigate some of the support incidents that you might get from the end users. Now, you might wonder, how do I get hold of all these advanced content management capabilities? We are very thrilled to announce an add-on bundle called Advanced Management. But wait, there is more. I mentioned about the life cycle of organization, and there are two major capabilities that I like to share with you in this context. The first capability is SharePoint tenant rename. As we announced in the last Ignite, SharePoint tenant rename allows you to rename your SharePoint URL namespace. For example, you might have created the tenant with the name contosotest.sharepoint.com, and then you started using the tenant. Next thing you know, it became your production tenant. But now you wanted to rename that tenant as contoso.sharepoint.com, or rebranding. You go from contoso.sharepoint.com to fabricam.sharepoint.com. SharePoint tenant rename capability allows you to do that. We announced public preview of this capability in the last Ignite. Now we are thrilled to announce general availability of this capability for tenants that has less than 10,000 sites. The next capability in organization lifecycle management that I like to share with you is cross-tenant user data move for OneDrives. Mergers, acquisitions, and divestitures are the key scenario for every organization. And in fact, it's the bread and butter for many organizations to grow and to expand into multiple markets as well. You can now move the OneDrives from the source tenant to the destination tenant really fast. As you can see, the commandlet start SPO cross-tenant user content move is a simple commandlet that you have to use to trigger that move to happen once you have established the trust between the two tenants. The other major capability that I want to highlight is the sharing links that you perhaps might have sent out for the OneDrive files to other colleagues or external partners will continue to work. They are not going to be broken. This is because of the redirect capability that we have introduced as part of this cross-tenant move capability. We are thrilled to announce general availability of this capability. And let's take a quick look at this capability in action. And I know many of you probably are really excited to see this. Here I am as the user Shobha looking at her OneDrive in the Contoso Health Tech Corporation. She is one of the users that is going to be acquired as part of the acquisition done by Pharma Tech. She has a document here, Pharma Project Phase 2 document, that is still lives in the Contoso Health Tech tenancy. Now, as the administrator of the Contoso Health Tech, I can now make sure the trust is established between Contoso Health Tech tenant and the Pharma Tech tenant. And then I can invoke the commandlet start SPO cross tenant user content move, mentioning the user I would like to move to other tenancy. And as you can see, now the tenant particular content move is now scheduled for Shobha's OneDrive. After the move is completed, and now Shobha is able to access her OneDrive in the Pharma Tech tenant itself, as you can see here. The another cool feature here is Shobha has shared a file from her OneDrive with Jeff before the move happened. And when Jeff clicks on that link, Jeff now able to access the document just like that, because the redirect capability detects that the document got moved over to the new tenant and it automatically redirects to the new tenant as well. I know when I first saw this demo, I was super excited to see this sharing links fixing up and then redirect automatically happens. I hope you feel the same way too. So that was a whirlwind tour of all the management capabilities and organization lifecycle management capabilities. Now let me summarize and give you a one slide capturing all these capabilities that I just talked about. Here is the roadmap slide talking about capabilities that are available now and the ones that are coming in the next semester and beyond. It covers both security and compliance controls and the management controls. And there are a few capabilities that I did not have the chance to talk about in this session. For example, multi-account support is something already available in Microsoft 365, wherein you can switch the account from one to the other within the browser experience without having to sign out and then sign back in. Another one is the syntax models now also support sensitivity labels. So you can now model it automatically, apply the sensitivity label as part of that model evaluation as well. And then another one, if you see further down, programmatic way to set sensitivity labels in the SharePoint is coming up as private preview by end of this calendar year as well. We are also looking at in the next semester and beyond, bringing in PDF support, as well as the site lifecycle policies, inactive sites, GA for general availability as well. And we're also looking at the cross-tenant content move for SharePoint sites in the next semester as well. Before I wrap up, I want to share one other quick note about the Security and Compliance Cookbook that we have published. This is a free download PDF file. I strongly encourage you to download and print it out and perhaps share it with your decision makers to explain to them in simple terms what are all the awesome security and compliance capabilities that already exist in the Microsoft 365 service. With that, I wanted to finish with where I started. As I mentioned earlier, zero trust is the trend that we see in the security. Also, organizations are seeing the ever increasing digital content in their digital estate. We hope that the new controls that we shared with you today across security and management will empower you to achieve zero trust while at the same time geared up to manage your ever increasing digital estate. So, with that, on behalf of Yogesh and myself, I wanted to thank you for the time you take today to see this session and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.